Hey, welcome back to Outside the Room. I'm CG Funk, your host. It's so wonderful to connect with you again through this show, and I'm glad you're joining me on this journey. Now, before we get started, I wanted to thank Massage Heights, our exclusive sponsor for Outside the Room. For massage therapists and estheticians looking for a career change, I strongly recommend you search your area for a Massage Heights location. The Massage Heights teams are so positive and energetic, and Massage Heights truly understands the work you provide every day is special and is committed to creating a culture of care and environments where massage therapists, estheticians, and support staff can thrive. Please visit www.massageheights.com/careers to learn more information. Our special guest today is none other than Whitney Lowe. Whitney is an icon in the massage therapy industry, and there are probably only a handful of professional massage therapists out there that haven't at least heard his name. Whitney has about 35 years in the massage profession. He is the author of the first accessible assessment textbook, Orthopedic Assessment in Massage Therapy, as well as others. He developed the groundbreaking orthopedic massage online certificate program, applying true online educational methods and technology for the first time in our industry. He is regularly featured author in publications like Massage and Bodywork, Massage Today, and Massage Magazine. And I'll tell you, it would take an hour for me to share all his accomplishments and contributions to the massage profession with you. And I'm so honored to have Whitney here on Outside the Room, so let's just get started. Well, hello, Whitney Lowe. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Great to spend some time with you once again here today.
Yeah, we're so honored that you took some time out. You know, all the massage therapists that are going to listen to this and watch this virtual show are going to be so thrilled because, of course, you're world famous through your work that you've done. And I know that you and Benny Vaughn are really great friends. And he said He said something to me when we talked to him in January about we often get recognized or rewarded in public for what we've done in private for our lives and our years. And I love that saying, and that's you. Massage therapist and instructor and continuing education provider and online education technology extraordinaire. You've done it all. So let's start from the beginning because you know, I don't think a lot of people know your whole story. You originally got a Bachelor's of Arts degree in psychology from the University of Georgia. And then less than a year later, it wasn't even a year later, Whitney, you went to massage school. So I just want to know what motivated you, inspired you to go to and learn massage?
Well, there's actually an intervening thing happening between those two events, which was my first year of graduate school. So when I finished my undergraduate degree, I went immediately into graduate school studying psychology with the intention of being a counselor. And so I had actually already been in graduate school for a year when I entered massage school. So what had happened was that I was doing my graduate study and was I'd been sort of in a long stretch of trying to finish up school. So I've been taking lots of courses and sort of overloading my schedule and trying to get through a bunch of things. And I was getting kind of burned out of my graduate school program. And my ex-wife at that time had started massage school. And she was coming home every day telling me all the things that they were learning about mind-body interaction and, you know, client-therapist relationship stuff. And I was in graduate school. I was still at this point studying about rats running in mazes. And I was like, what's happening here? They're learning all this cool stuff in massage school. And I was also really interested in a lot of the things about the mind-body connection and that sort of thing at that time. And I thought, like, this is really interesting. But, you know, I bet I could go to massage school and make that be my job, that I could work around my graduate school schedule and make that be a lot easier. And in the meantime, learn some really cool things about the mind-body connection. So I decided I was going to just do that, take a short break from graduate school, go to a massage school, and then just, you know, work at massage as a side gig for paying the bills. And of course, that short break has turned now into 33 plus years or something like that, because I never went back to finish my master's degree program. So that's how I got in massage. Like so many people, you know, went to school and I got hooked. there was just too many fascinating things going on in this field that just, captivated me. And at that point I was hooked.
So a really quick question. Had you had a massage before you went into school? Had you experienced therapeutic massage beforehand, or were you going in as a total newbie?
No, absolutely. Because my ex-wife was in massage school, I was getting worked on a lot. She would bring me over to school for all her classmates who needed practice. I was like, yeah, I'll do that, and volunteered. So those were my first experiences with massage. But yeah, I was getting quite a lot of practice work done on me at that time. But it was, like so many people, pretty foreign at the outset. Like, wow, this is really interesting. Yeah. So.
And this was early on. So we're talking the 1980s. So I just want the
this would have
viewers
been
to
1980.
understand.
Let me think. This would have been 1986. Yeah. 86, 87 or something like that. I was also at that time too, very intensely studying and practicing martial arts. So massage was really helpful and valuable for me in terms of taking care of my body, because I was doing some pretty intensive training, sometimes an hour or two a day of workout stuff that I was doing at that time. So I really enjoyed learning more about the body, and also, getting a different body sense that was coming out of that whole practice as well.
It's interesting though, I always take these side roads here in these interviews, but if you think about you going into massage therapy school, massage was not a household word back then by any stretch of the imagination. And changing.
No, and that was in the South also. So it was like when I told my parents that I was quitting graduate school to go to massage school, that didn't go over too well.
That was like exactly what I was going to ask you. So you had to you had to forge ahead without that, kind of emotional parental support. Which I think a lot of us did in those early days. So
yeah, for sure.
When you graduated, was there state licensing in Georgia at that point?
Oh, absolutely not. No. And I don't think they even got state. I left Georgia, ended up moving from Georgia to Oregon in 1994. And I don't think they got licensure until several years after I had left the state too. So it was in that sort of big wave of states that were happening around the early 2000s, I think, somewhere around then when they got licensure.
And when you graduated, what was it like? What did you do? How did you work as a massage therapist? Where were you working? What was your clientele?
So I did kind of like a little bit of everything. I was sort of bouncing around trying to find what were the best places to be. And, I worked in a chiropractic office. I worked in a health club. I did work out of my house. Just trying to find a niche of what I wanted to really be doing. Because at that time, I still was, when I left massage school, was still initially under this idea that I was going to try to do some type of thing integrating massage and counseling and psychotherapy things. And it wasn't until, a year or two out of massage school that I took a couple of continuing education workshops and started really recognizing that I had a real interest in pain and injury treatment. And it was at that time too that I met Benny, which was, I think like 1989, maybe something like that, when he came to our school to teach. And that just really was just a huge eye opener for me. And I just got juiced at that point to really get on that track.
And he just thinks so highly of you. I mean, he adores what you've done. I think not adores like in a loving sense, although there's love, it's adoration because and I know that you call him your mentor.
Yes, really. Absolutely.
Yeah.
He was so instrumental in the early parts of my career. Just from a teaching standpoint, he was the first person, and I had taken a bunch of continuing education workshops with really well-known people at that point. All of them were teaching techniques. Here's what you do, here's what you do, here's what you do. But it wasn't until I took a class with Benny, he was the first person who started talking about assessment and evaluation. And like, you have to actually know what's going on first before you can figure out what to do about it. And that was just sort of like a lightning bolt to me. It's like, yeah, that's kind of obvious. So, why aren't we really focusing on this more? And then, of course, that's become a career-long obsession for me, is this whole concept of getting better and more refined about teaching massage therapists about assessment and evaluation concepts as well.
I love that. Now, and that's what I was going to ask you too, because you made this segue. First of all, I want to say that your work and your teaching has made a tremendous impact on massage therapists around the world, because I know that it's not just in North America that people know you and where you've taught. But I guess I'm curious, you were on this track for psychology, you became a massage therapist, you really gravitated and fell in love with the work, and then you became a teacher. So how did all that transpire from you actually practicing massage and practically doing it to want to teach it?
Yeah, well, there's kind of like an interesting story behind that, which is I started work at the massage school to pay off my school debt. I was doing administrative work in the office. And then, like many massage schools in those days, and you probably remember the way this kind of happened, was that, people would become teaching assistants and help out teachers in the classroom. And I started becoming a teaching assistant just to sort of help out and do some work around there, because I was still really interested in the field at that point and saying like, hey, I really like doing this stuff. I want to learn some more about it. And we had a couple of outstandingly talented massage teachers at the school where I went, which is the Atlanta School of Massage. And it was kind of it was really like a talent vortex in Atlanta at that time around that particular school. There were just some outstanding educators there. And I wanted to hang around with them and learn some things from them. And I had only been around doing that as a teaching assistant for about a year when the curriculum director said, I want you to take on your own class. And I said, I am not ready for this. And she said, oh, yes, you are. And, the teaching process in those days was oftentimes just throw somebody in the classroom and see if they sink or swim. And that's kind of the way it ended up. The only way I was really ever going to get respect from the students was if I really, really knew stuff very thoroughly. And so that was kind of the drive that started me really focusing on teaching and learning way more than I was going to have to teach in the classroom, so that I could really be considered somebody who was knowledgeable doing that kind of stuff. So it was sort of out of not desperation, but out of a desire to really be able to be capable in the classroom that really drove me to do that.
I love that story. And it's kind of like we have a parallel experience. I just came a few years later than you, but I remember TAing for about maybe 6 months. I don't think it was longer than that. And Norm Cohn, the owner of the school at the time, he called me in and he goes, I want to put this class in cranial sacral therapy. And he had known that I had taken a bunch of continuing education after I got out of school. And he goes, I want you to teach it. And of course, you don't say no to him. It's just impossible. So I went, okay. And he goes, the first class will be in 6 months. And I remember going out to my car and just crying, because I thought, what in the world did I just do? I don't have the talent, I don't have the experience to do this. And so I studied really hard too, in between those 6 months. But I remember a teacher telling me at one point, you know more than they do, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like I just had this goal of staying one class ahead so that I could really immerse myself in that particular class.
Yeah. Well, one other thing too, just to add into this, was that I also recognized that I was extremely lucky and fortunate geographically of where I lived at that time, because I lived in a community outside of Atlanta called Decatur, which is just down the road from Emory University. And I went over to, this was pre-internet days, so there was no, getting resources or information on the internet. If you wanted to get good medical information, you had to go to a medical library or a university library somewhere. And I would go in my spare time just over to the medical library and just start pulling journals off the shelf and, medical books in the orthopedic section, just looking stuff up and looking into things. And that was a lot of my learning process, was this self-driven obsession with learning about the body and about all these different types of conditions and things like that. And the Emory University Library resources there were just tremendously beneficial for helping me get to that place.
That's wonderful. I think it's, for me too, I was very lucky because we had really interesting experienced instructors in our area too, in Salt Lake City. And there was an influx of, we studied with, Andre, who was from Russia, and he was the massage therapist for the Russian athletic swim team. And so there, there was Ivan from Czechoslovakia. So it was like we had those teachers too, that you're just like, these amazing healers and amazing instructors. Yeah, I love it.
Soak it up.
Yeah, soak it up. No kidding. But I think we also had to make those correlations because there weren't reference books for us. It was, right? Even for the stuff you did. And I think that I'm always I always am impressed that you are constantly exploring what's new. in massage therapy or in research or in practice. So you have this I'm forever a student drive in you to continue to learn and stay up to date. But you've created a lot of that too. So, I just want to call that out, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But what's new today? Tell me what's new today out there in the massage world that's really getting your juices flowing.
I think, what's kind of new and interesting to me is the integration of new findings that are coming from research and watching some growth in our profession too of maturity. For example, in the early days when you and I got started, it was pretty easy for people just to be a guru teacher and go out there and make claims about things and say, I do this technique and this is what happens as a result of it. And you had no other way to really test that other than just saying, okay, that must be correct because so-and-so is famous and well known. But now I see a lot more massage therapists becoming critical thinkers and really questioning things and integrating stuff that they're learning from other fields, whether that's, physical therapy, occupational therapy, or some of the other, fields out there, or other aspects of wellness care and things like that, and really integrating these concepts into becoming much more well-rounded professionals and looking for good evidence to back up what they're doing. And it's making us work harder and be better at what we're doing. And I think that's a real sign of growth in the field. And that to me is really exciting and encouraging that we're getting to this place. And of course, in my opinion, we've got a long way to go to where I would like to see us get to, but I'm really encouraged by the directions that I see us moving in. In the earlier days of our field, we were having to fight some pretty erroneous stereotypes about what we do behind that door when the door is closed with people. And so, now more of that stuff is coming out and it's driving more people to want to look into those things. I worked at a physical therapy clinic back in Atlanta that was affiliated with Emory's Medical School for a while. And I would often come out, we had sort of a big open gym area and that had some treatment mats in it. And they would do a lot of the physical therapy treatment out on those mats out there. And periodically, I would come and bring the patients out there and do some of the massage work out in the open, like you're working on like somebody's leg or foot or ankle or something where it's not going to be having to worry about draping or things like that. But one of the reasons that I did that is that I wanted the other health professionals in the clinic, the other physical therapists, athletic trainers, and orthopedists to see what we're really doing. And some of them came over like, wow, that's really cool. What are you doing? Where'd you learn how to do that? And I recognize like, well, that's what we do. That's what we do here. That's
pretty amazing because I can imagine that there was a little animosity happening in that situation in those days. Between the physical therapist, occupational therapist, and there's this joker massage guy coming in. And so it's really great to hear that they were actually curious and watching as opposed to, dismissing.
Well, yeah, the way it started off was at this clinic, they had this big long hallway with all these treatment rooms, and they put me in the treatment room at the far end of the hallway. And, what started happening is they started with kind of like, they'd have patients that they couldn't figure out what to do with. It's like, well, send them to the massage guy. We can't figure out what to do with them. Just send them to the massage guy. And then, every once in a while, people would come out of this room, you're just saying like, oh man, I feel so much better. Thank you so much. And, they'd be in the hallway. It's like, what happened in there? What's going on? They'd sort of peek around in the room and see like, I had turned the lights off and put a lamp on and made it, quiet and nice and sort of not the sterile fluorescent lit treatment rooms that most of the rest of the people were in there. They were all kind of like, what's going on in there? And we, over the course of the years, really built a wonderful mutual respect for each other. They began asking me questions about what I was doing, and I was following them around like a puppy dog, asking them all the time, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Because I really wanted to know and learn from what they were doing. And so it became a great opportunity for us to educate each other and become a healthcare team there that could recognize that some things that they did were going to be far more helpful for people than what I did. And sometimes what I was going to do was going to be far more helpful for people. So trying to get people the very best care with those different options.
And it's interesting thinking back probably now you're setting up your career right then, not even really knowing it, right? Because
yeah. Mm-hmm.
you're starting to learn and operate on a different level as a massage therapist with the influence of that environment. So that's super interesting. Hey, before we, I do want to talk about your continuing education programs, because, I mean, of course, they're incredible, fantastic, one of a kind, but you were one of the first to offer continuing education for massage therapists online. And I really want to make a distinction here, because this was in 1999. And of course, it was unheard of. It was groundbreaking. It was also not very well accepted in the massage continuing education community. And you were just way ahead of your time. 1999. So I want all our viewers to know, 1999, he started the first online massage therapist continuing education courses. What inspired you to do this, Whitney?
Well, it actually came out of I've been teaching a lot of courses in the standard workshop environment, and the kind of stuff that I was teaching had a lot more to do with clinical reasoning, sort of, not just doing techniques, but asking people, okay, if somebody comes in and has shoulder pain, how do you figure out what's going on with their shoulder? And then how do you construct a treatment plan that's different than the other person that came in earlier today with shoulder pain, because they're two different people. And these are much more complex clinical reasoning processes, and they're very difficult to teach in a 2-day weekend workshop, especially when, I was recognizing at that time that there's a lot that happens with sort of, mental fatigue and burnout, what we call cognitive load, which is, you can only take in so much at a certain time. And in that particular logistical method of the weekend workshop, it's 8 hours of course content that you're taking in. And I'd tell people something, turn around, 30 minutes later and try to do a practical exercise and see if they could apply what I had told them. And, I'd ask them, does anybody have any questions? And nobody had any questions. And then I'd try to get them to do something, and would recognize that they just couldn't apply those concepts immediately because there wasn't enough time to integrate those things. And so I started looking around and at some of the things that were going on with online education in the early days in the medical schools, with trying to do this very thing, with teach more complex clinical reasoning processes with what were called virtual patients, where they'd sort of simulate a patient problem and then have the individual go through that and make mistakes and be able to correct those mistakes in a safe environment and learn from it. And one of the key benefits of that methodology was what we call chunking, which is you take things in very small segments and you do them over time, as opposed to in a sort of crash course kind of environment like we do in the weekend workshop format. And I recognized that a lot of what I was trying to teach massage therapists would also fit very well in that model of doing those things online. So I started looking into, was this feasible to do? And I had to learn a whole lot about multimedia learning theory and instructional design, and of course the whole technology end of how everything was done. And as you noted, back in those days, the technology was very rudimentary, and the software that we used to build things was really just in the early stages of getting off the ground. So there was a lot more that I saw that could happen. And people were still on dial-up connections. So, you couldn't do video, you couldn't do sound. It was really all text-based things. But I saw this as the future of some really engaging and interesting educational methodologies. And that's what really made me dive in and want to get sort of obsessed with learning more about it and trying to do it really well.
That's a really amazing story. Again, always on the forefront you are, Mr. Lowe. Always on the forefront. You little rule breaker, troublemaker, right. Hey, listen, outside the room, this virtual show is about massage therapists and estheticians, because when we really approach and put the show together, we really felt like these are both hands-on healers. And our world tends to separate these two beautiful careers. One is in therapeutic, one is in beauty. But we look at it, they're both in therapeutic. So as we close out this segment, what do you want to say to them? Like, inspire them to continue to learn, give a little message to our massage therapists and estheticians out there.
Well, here's one of the things that I would say, and this is a really important point. I'm really glad that you brought this up, because this oftentimes gets sort of clouded in this sort of division that we have in our field about some of these different perspectives. But And this has been something that's been shown through research in psychotherapy and research in physical therapy and a lot of the other healing professions, that regardless of all of those techniques that you focus on. And, my personal orientation is a lot more towards a science-based approach and things like that. But at the same time, I have this background in psychology and counseling, and I recognize a lot of those other aspects. And regardless of what you're doing, specifically technique-wise with somebody, I think one of the most important things to remember about the therapeutic benefit that comes out of any session, regardless of what you're doing in massage, aesthetics, whatever it is the development of that client-therapist relationship. And you can do that when you're doing all kinds of things with people. And that's for a big reason why a lot of these people come to see us, is because they get a great benefit of that time of having somebody just focus on them, take care of them in whatever way they're doing that, and be in a therapeutic space with them with direct compassion and intention about what they're doing. And that, my friends, regardless of the technique and the methodology that you're using, has incredible healing potential to relieve people's pain and discomfort and suffering in the world, whatever that happens to be. So I say make the tent bigger, include all these different things, and look at a wide variety of ways in which all of us can help people who come seeking our care.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Hey, Whitney, would you come back and visit us again? Because I would have so many more questions for you, and we'd love to have you back on the show. What do you say?
Absolutely. Always a joy to talk with you, CG, and anytime I'll be happy to come and chat with you some more.
Great. Well, awesome, Whitney. Well, listen, have a fantastic day, and we sure appreciate you being on Outside the Room.
All right. Thanks. And thanks so much for all the wonderful work that you've been doing, too, through our field through the years. It's wonderful to see you doing some new adventures here.
Thank you, Whitney. Have a good day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Wowee, that Whitney Lowe, he is a rock star. Again, I appreciate you joining me today, and I will see you next time on Outside the Room. From my heart to your heart, namaste.